What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome back to another Group of 5 preview and prediction standings video, whatever it is you want to call these sorts of things. Hey, today you're getting a lot of content from me. I'm going through each and every one of the Group of 5 conferences, giving you my final standings recap and giving you my overall and eventual conference championship game, as well as when you take a look at what else is coming on my channel. You'll get 2 preview and predictions today for games that are happening in a loaded week one. I think I'm doing anywhere from 6 to 8 games this week in week one, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But before we dive on into anything else, I do just want to say a couple of things. First off, again, congested. I'll probably say it throughout every video today, but I apologize for the way that my sinuses are. It's just that time of year, so bear with me on that. Again, I apologize, but again, you can probably even hear it in my voice. But beyond that, I just want to thank you guys for your support here of this channel. It really does mean a lot to me. And if you want to continue to show your support for my channel, hey, do anything you can to interact with it, because it all helps to support it, especially by watching this video, which I just want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to do. Go ahead, and if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, you got to subscribe and ring the bell, because you got to hear my thoughts on everything happening around the college football landscape this season. And again, just do anything else you can to help support the channel. Like, comment, share. And if you're interested in a little bit more than YouTube, go follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at TailgateNate29. I'll be posting a lot more than just YouTube stuff about my aspiring journey as a sports media professional, the field work I do on campus, and everything else. So please go check me out on Twitter. I am going to try to be posting as much as I can. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in talking about the Sun Belt Conference. And it's got a lot of good teams here in the Sun Belt, and teams that I honestly think have the potential to push for spots in the college football playoff. And the Sun Belt is actually the only team, or not the only team, the only conference in the country right now that still has their conference sorted by divisions. Yes, there still are divisions in the Sun Belt Conference, which is why the standings look a little bit different than my other videos. You have the Sun Belt West, which obviously is on the west or right-hand side of your screen, and the Sun Belt East, which is on the east or the right-hand side of your screen. Did I say right when I meant west? I meant left. Sun Belt West is on the left. Sun Belt East is on the right. So we're going to go through the Sun Belt West first, then we'll go through the Sun Belt East second, tell you why I have my conference championship game the way I do, and why I have my eventual conference champion. Let's start out with the team that I'm the highest on in this conference. I'll be honest here. First and foremost, it's the Texas State Bobcats. They just have a ridiculously good offense. They did last year, and if you thought that offense was good last year, boy, wait till you see what G.J. Kinney's squad has in store for you this year. Jordan McLeod is coming in to play quarterback. Ismail Mahdi is one of the most overlooked and underrated running backs in the entire country. He is really good. They brought in Deion Hankins from UTEP to be a backup running back for him. He was really good for the Miners over there. This wide receiver room led by Joey Hobert is going to be electric this season. And the defense, yes, struggled last year, but they're getting a bulk ton of transfers, including a couple that are going to see good playing time. And I expect the defense to improve for Texas State from where it was last season. I think the offense is going to win them a ton of games this year. I think the defense, while I don't think it has to be a top 50 defense, top 25 to really contend or improve that much or anything like that, again, I think the offense is going to be ridiculous and already too much for most teams to keep up with. I do think that Texas State, the defense, has to improve somewhat, and I think it'll improve fairly drastically. I think you're going to see that throughout the course of this season. Texas State wins the Sun Belt West to me. But let's talk about some of the other teams in the division that can win it. Louisiana and Arkansas State. I think these are two teams that are going to be pretty good this year. Chandler Fields is coming back for Louisiana. Jalen Rayner, a freshman sensation last year, comes back for Arkansas State, and they both have a ton of offensive talent surrounding them. Louisiana definitely has a lot better of a defense than what Arkansas State had last year as the Red Wolves try to improve that defense. But if you're not as high on the Texas State Bobcats as I am, I just think they got a ton of good talent headed out of the park in the transfer portal, and I think G.J. Kinney is a really, really good coach. Louisiana or Arkansas State, those are teams that you could easily see contending for Sun Belt Conference title game. The appearance, again, of Texas State, if the defense isn't what it is supposed to be, maybe Louisiana or Arkansas State really emerges there. Those are two teams that I could easily see making the conference championship game. Probably more so Arkansas State than Louisiana. Or actually, no, I take that back. Probably more so Louisiana than Arkansas State. But regardless, I think they both play second fiddle to Texas State this year. Still two really good teams. Still two teams that are going to make bowl games out of the Sun Belt Conference. But two teams that I have fallen just a little bit behind in this division. South Alabama is next, and I do want to say my record was actually wrong. There was a double up in predictions. When I was talking about South Alabama, they had a game on there that I had them losing that I originally had projected them to win in a different video. So I changed their record here. They were 6-6, 4-4 in conference. Now they are 7-5, 5-3 in conference, and it just works out that way because, well, it has to with the math and everything. Again, I found out there was a double up. While 6-6, I think, is a little bit of a better record for South Alabama this year. They can absolutely surprise and go 7-5. Why? Because yes, while you lose Carter Bradley, that wide receiver room for South Alabama is still going to end up being really, really good. And I like a lot of the receivers that the Jaguars have there. Of course, Kane Womack is gone. He took an assistant job with a Power 4 program. So you do get Major Applewhite, who was the offensive coordinator for you last season, taking over as the head coach. I think the offense is going to do some good things. We'll see what the defense does for South Alabama this year. But overall, I like what the Jaguars have, especially offensively, to make a run potentially at a conference championship game. But I think 7-5 is even a surprise season compared to what they lost enough for that Jaguar program. Before we talk about Troy, got to take a water break, because water is important. Y'all got to make sure you stay hydrated out there. Now let's talk about the Troy Trojans, a team that, has lost their head coach, lost a ton of defensive players, lost some really good offensive players, most notably the quarterback in Gunnar Watson and the running back in Kamani Vidal as well. Troy's going to be really feeling it as well because, again, their head coach, John Sumrall, went over to go went over to go coach the Tulane Green Wave. I don't actually think I mentioned that in my American Athletic video. Well, again, I think John Sumrall is going to fare really well at Tulane this season, but Troy now has Gerard Parker taking over this program. And again, while it's not a guy that I particularly love to be a head coach, you can't argue that, I do think he's got himself a really solid squad here. When you take a look at Troy, Goose Crowder taking over at quarterback, I think you're going to see some solid things there. Gerald Green coming in to be that running back, still some good pieces there at the wide receiver position. Defensively, you add a ton of transfers, especially depth pieces that'll play a lot for you. And Troy's another team that I think is going to be able to make a bowl game this year. I do like a lot of pieces they have. I think they're going to be really solid. And overall, you take a look at those top 5 teams there, and realistically speaking, I could listen definitely to any cases for either one of those top 5 teams in the Sun Belt West to make the conference championship game. Now, again, I love Texas State, and I'm still going to go with the Texas State Bobcats, but more so Louisiana and Arkansas State, South Alabama and Troy, maybe if everything goes right, can definitely make pushes for the conference championship game. These are 2 teams that I just don't think will. Southern Miss goes 2-10 this year, according to me. And look, while that might be heavily underrating this Southern Miss program, sure, and I'll take my flack for it if I am wrong, I underrated them according to their fan base at 3-9 last year, and they went 3-9. Now, I'm probably definitely underrating them more so this year than I did last year, because you have to figure that Will Hall's team is going to get better this year, right? Well, again, some teams in the nation just have to disappoint, and I think Southern Miss is going to be one of those teams. I don't think it's going to work for Will Hall this year. They do have a lot of talent on that team, but losing Frank Gore Jr., losing some important defensive pieces, I think is going to hit this team hard, and Southern Miss ultimately falls this year, and maybe they're coach searching at the end of this season. And ULM has just consistently been one of the worst programs in the country. Really no further explanation needed on why I have them farther down here at 1-11, 0-8 in conference, and that wraps up the Sun Belt West. So now let's go ahead and my apologies again, congestion. Let's go ahead and take a look now at the Sun Belt East, because this is definitely, the Sun Belt West is still going to be very competitive this year, and you'll see I have 10 teams out of the Sun Belt making a bowl game, 5 from each division, but I do think that the Sun Belt East, my apologies, is going to be a little bit more competitive, at least in terms of who can go make a conference championship game. Again, I think it's Texas State in that West, maybe Louisiana, maybe Arkansas State, but you have Appalachian State, James Madison, Marshall, Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina. I think that all can make pushes to get into the conference championship game, but the 2 big dogs in this division are James Madison and Appalachian State. I have Appalachian State beating James Madison in the regular season, so I think they will get the nod to go to the conference championship game. And really, you can't really argue that. I mean, Joey Aguilar is coming back, and yes, you do lose Nate Noel, but Kanye Roberts is back, and Joey Aguilar has a ton of returning weapons in that wide receiver room. Defensively, you expect this Appalachian State team to still be pretty darn solid. And overall, I mean, when you take a look at Sean Clark's group, again, I'll just go through list some of the wide receivers here right now. Caden Robinson, Christian Horn, Makai Jackson. You take a look at the defensive side, and there's a ton of really good defensive players. But yeah, I mean, overall, just a ton of really good defensive players that App State has. And I mean, overall, when you go ahead and take a look at App State, I think they're the best team in that division. They get the win over James Madison. I think they're going to be able to make that conference championship game. Now let's go ahead and slide on down to James Madison. We'll kind of run through them a little bit here. Yes, they did lose their head coach, Kurt Signetti. Yes, they did lose Jordan McLeod. Yes, they did lose pretty much every important offensive and defense piece that they had last season. But overall, you get Bob Chesney coming in. You get a lot of really good transfers. And I mean, when you take a look at this James Madison program, I really don't think they're going to be that far off from being a very competitive side within the Sun Belt Conference this year. I mean, hang on, let me just pull up the depth chart here really quick and we can take a look at it. I mean, Dylan Morris is coming in to play quarterback. I think that's a big get for them. Io Adayi is coming in to play running back for you. You got some really good wide receiver transfers coming in, a ton of really good defensive talent. And I think James Madison's going to end up being a really solid squad for the Sun Belt Conference this season. A team that I absolutely think can make a push towards the conference championship game. And I mean, yes, look, I love Bob Chesney as a head coach, coming over, of course, from Holy Cross last season. And I think he's going to fare pretty well here. And James Madison is going to be able to fare pretty well. But again, unfortunately, due to tiebreakers and such, I just don't think they end up getting to the conference championship game. We'll run through the rest of the division here pretty quickly. Marshall, I think it's going to be a pretty competitive team this year yet again. No real true worries about Cole Pennington at quarterback. I think he is going to be able to get things figured out eventually for this program. But I mean, overall, just when you go ahead and you talk about Marshall, I mean, look, they're still going to be a solid team. The offense is still going to be solid. The defense is still going to be solid. And I think Marshall, just overall as a whole, is going to be a really competitive bunch this season. Maybe if everything goes well, they can make a push towards the conference championship game. But just when you go ahead and take a look, I mean, I think Marshall's going to be a competitive squad. Again, Cole Pennington was not great last year. If he improves his play, though, Marshall should definitely see a pretty solid season. Georgia Southern is coming up next. And again, Georgia Southern's one of those teams that I also just feel like will be a pretty competitive bunch this year. J.C. French going to be taking over the quarterback position, but you have a lot of talented weapons surrounding him. So even though the quarterback play is new, you have a lot of very talented weapons. Marcus Sanders, Derwin Burgess at wide receiver. Jalen White is coming back to play running back. Those are all exceptionally skilled players in their own right, in, again, their own position. You take a look at some of the defensive players they have and a ton of returning talents coming back on defense. You have some really good transfer portal pieces coming in there as well. Georgia Southern just overall is going to be a really solid team this season. Maybe 7-5 is a little bit is disappointing some of the Golden Eagle fans out there. And again, Clay Helton, again, where does his expectation lie this year? That's definitely a conversation to be had, but I think Georgia Southern's still going to fare very solidly this season. Coastal Carolina is definitely probably not going to be as good talent-wise as they have been in the past, just because, again, you do lose Grayson McCall, you do lose some really important wide receiver pieces, you lose some really important defensive pieces, but I think Ethan Vasco is going to provide solid quarterback play. You get Braden Bennett coming back there at running back, wide receiver room, you bring in some talented transfers. Defensively, ton of returning talent is going to be coming back, led in the defensive back room by Matthew McDoom, which is just honestly a fun name to say. I mean, come on, that's just a very fun name to say. But Coastal Carolina is still going to be a solid team this year. Again, I don't love that Tim Beck is the head coach there. I just don't love him as a head coach personally, but you can't deny that, again, he had some good things going in Conway last year. He'll have some good things going in Conway this year, and Coastal Carolina will be a solid team yet again this season. Old Dominion, I think, is going to be competitive in a lot of different ways this year. I don't necessarily think that leads to many wins. You do get Hayden Wolf coming back to play quarterback for you this year, and there are a lot of other things with Old Dominion that, look, quite honestly, could go a lot better than I'm projecting for them this year. Just not a team I'm super high on. Same thing with the Georgia State Panthers. I mean, they lost pretty much everybody from last year. Quarterback play, running back play, and that of Marcus Carroll, who was phenomenal for the team. Ton of defensive talent gone, head coach gone. It's just a lot of overturn for Georgia State, and I do think that they are going to be a team that just really sees their struggles out of the Sun Belt Conference this year. But Texas State and App State, there you go. That is my conference championship game here for the Texas State Bobcats. I think they're going to end up pulling out the Sun Belt Conference championship game title. I really like this Bobcat offense. If you couldn't tell by earlier in the video, well, you can tell now. Texas State has a really good offense led by Jordan McLeod, led by, oh my goodness, what is that? Ismail Mahdi at running back. I just think is really good. And overall, I mean, when you take a look at this Texas State team, how can you not love it? The offense is going to be great. The defense will see improvements. And I got the Texas State Bobcats winning the Sun Belt Conference this year. Hey, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Please remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Have a good rest of your day. Again, we got a lot more content coming out here for you. 3 more conference standings preview predictions, whatever you want to call them. And in my next video, we'll go talk about the Mountain West. Again, remember to play hard, tailgate harder. See you guys in the next one. Goodbye.